So with your image, and the first thing that I look at when I look at images, I look at what needs to be fixed with this image. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play perfect white balance because there's a little bit of a yellow cast. The image is a little bit too warm. With the actions, if there's anything you need to do on the next screen, a window is going to pop up and it's going to explain what you need to do. So this screen's telling us to use the middle dropper, which is the gray dropper, and we're going to click it here on this gray area. So that is going to help with the white balance of our image. It's a little bit too strong because I feel like it's brought in a little bit too much blue. So we are going to pull down the opacity a little bit. We want it to be neutralized, but from the yellow, but we don't want it to be too blue. So I'm going to put this at about 80%, and I think that that looks pretty good. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make this background nice and white, so I'm going to play the pop whites action. So we're going to go ahead and press play on that. Again, you're going to get another thing that comes up that tells you that on this one we're going to use the white dropper and we're going to drop it in on the white. So this did a really great job on most of the image, but you can see there are a couple areas where it washed out the image a little bit. So we can bring down the opacity of this layer just a tiny bit, just to kind of, I'm going to bring it back to about 95, just so I still have a nice white background, but it's going to help me bring back some of the details of the glass. And then we can use our layer mask to further bring back some of the details. Now, one thing that I suggest when you're photographing glass is, one, you're not actually lighting the product itself. You're going to be lighting the background. And then with glass, so you can get the definition on the sides of your image, you want to use black boards. And those black boards are probably going to, you probably want them at about a 45-degree angle, and that's going to, and so they would be off to the side here and off to the side here. And what that's going to give you is really nice definition to your glass. And then by lighting the background, you're going to avoid getting some of these harsher glares here. With glass, it's really, really difficult to do glass with natural light, so you almost have to have some kind of flash or continuous lighting kit to be able to photograph glass properly. So with the layer mask selected on this white pop layer, we're going to zoom in a little bit, and we are going to take our brush, and we want to make sure that our brush is black. So right here are the swatches, and this tells you, this is your foreground color, and this tells you what color your brush is going to be. So we want to reset our swatches. So I'm going to press D on my keyboard, that's going to reset them to white and black, and I'm going to press X on my keyboard, that's going to make black the active color. With my brush, I want to make sure that I have a brush with a hardness of 0, and I'm going to make my opacity about 10%. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly bring back some of the detail that we lost here by brushing over where the handle should be. And this is going to, and I can gradually build up, that's why my opacity is at 10%, so I can gradually build up and bring back the detail of the handle. And we also want to bring it back up here a little bit as well. And you can make your brush bigger and smaller by using the right and left bracket keys. Those are the things that look like a half rectangle. And if you go too far in an area or you brush on too much, you just want to go ahead and press X on your keyboard, and that's going to swap you back to white, and then you can go over the areas where you want to add it back in. And by using a really low opacity brush, you're making sure that the changes are really gradual, so you're not getting a blotchy edit. Everything is going to blend in really nicely. So I'm not going to take a lot of time on that because I'm just showing you how the actions work. But as you can see, I was able to bring back the detail along the glass. So that looks pretty good, but I do notice, probably from maybe some mixed lighting, we have kind of this cross of blue and yellow glares. So real quick, I'm going to play Bye Bye Yellow, which is going to help us get rid of that yellow glare. I'm going to bring the opacity of my brush up to about 40%, and I'm going to brush over this area, and that's going to help me get rid of some of those yellow glares that we had there. Then I'm going to play Bye Bye Blue, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to brush over this area, and then that's going to help me kind of neutralize that blue color cast that we have. So that looks pretty good. And so now what we have here, I'll show you, this is where we started, and this is where we ended up. So I think it looks a lot better. We still have some shadows, so it didn't completely get rid of the shadows, so our product doesn't look like it's just floating in mid-air, but it is on a nice white background. One further thing that we can do just to kind of adjust this area a little bit and kind of bring back a little bit more of the detail in our glass is we can play an action down here at the bottom of the action stack. It's called Make a Flat Layer. So we're going to play that, and what that does is it makes a copy of the layer with all of the changes that we just made. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to make a levels layer, and that's going to play the levels layer. What we're going to do is we're going to double click right here on this little graph, and I'm going to bring down the midtones, and so that the middle slider here is what we call our midtone slider, and I'm going to slide that to the right. And that's going to and you can see that that's bringing back some of the details of our glass while also keeping a nice white background. Then the final thing that I always like to do just to finish up my images is to play Crisp Finish. And what this action does is it just kind of makes the edges really nice and crisp. You can adjust it to be adjust it to be crisper or not as crisp. Now this is an action that's kind of hard to see when I'm zoomed out, so let me just zoom in here to show you. So this is without Crisp Finish. You can see that the image is kind of soft, and then when we have Crisp Finish activated, it just helps those edges look really nice and sharp. Even the lettering looks sharper. So again, here is our image, and then just to show you again, this is where we started, and this is where we ended. I hope that was helpful.